I was standing on my porch with a mug of coffee in my hand, watching red and blue lights flash across my front yard when I realized the kid screaming at the police wasn't some random troublemaker. It was the HOA president's son, and his Lamborghini was buried nose first in my lawn. That was the moment everything finally snapped into place, because the thing stuck in my grass wasn't just a car, it was the end of his immunity. It didn't start like that. Nothing ever does. I've lived in this neighborhood for a long time. Long enough to know every crack in the sidewalk, every tree that leans a little too far to the left, every neighbor who waves back, and everyone who pretends not to see you. From the outside, it's the kind of suburban place you see in real estate ads: wide streets, matching mailboxes, trimmed lawns, white fences, pretending we're all on the same page. But this house isn't just a property to me. It's where my wife and I built a life. Sarah and I poured the driveway ourselves, hands blistered and aching, laughing at how we probably should have paid someone else to do it. We planted the trees when they were barely taller than us. Every inch of this place has her fingerprints on it. She's gone now, and the quiet mornings, the ones where I sit on the porch with coffee and listen to the neighborhood wake up, are the closest thing I have left to her. That peace lasted until the engine noise started. The first time I heard it, I didn't even look up. Just another car, I thought. Then the sound got louder, sharper, angrier. Tires screamed. Dirt sprayed. When I finally turned toward the window, I saw fresh tracks carved straight across my lawn like someone had taken a knife to it. I told myself it had to be a mistake. People make wrong turns. People get distracted. I patched the grass, smoothed the soil, and moved on. The next morning it happened again. Same sound. Same line across my yard. This time I watched the car disappear down the street low, expensive and unmistakably intentional. A Lamborghini, bright, loud, and completely out of place on a quiet residential road. That's when I learned who was driving it. Breen Sutton, 23 years old, trust fund kid. The kind of guy who never hears the word no because the people around him don't want the trouble that comes with saying it. His mother, Delphine Sutton, just happened to be the president of our HOA. That detail would matter more than I realized. I tried to handle it the adult way, the calm way. I walked over to his house one afternoon, knocked on the door, and waited while he took his time answering. When he finally opened it, he looked annoyed, like I'd interrupted something far more important than destroying someone else's property. I pointed to the tire marks, explained politely that he'd been cutting through my yard, asked him to stop. He shrugged. "Dude," he said, leaning against the doorframe, "it's just grass. It'll grow back." Just grass. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I didn't explode. I didn't yell. I thanked him for his time and walked home. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt, because it wasn't about grass, it was about respect, and he didn't have any. The next morning at exactly 6:43 a.m., the engine roared again. This time he didn't just cross the lawn, he floored it, spun the tires, left bare dirt where green used to be. That was when I called the HOA. Delphine answered with that smile you can hear through a phone, the kind that sounds warm but never actually says anything. I explained the situation. Again. She laughed softly and said, "Boys will be boys." That was the moment I understood the rules were different for them. After that, Breen didn't even pretend it was an accident anymore. Every morning became a show. Same time, same path. Sometimes he'd rev the engine extra loud. Once he did a full donut in the middle of my lawn, dirt flying everywhere like he was performing for an invisible audience. I stood on my porch and watched day after day, feeling smaller every time. Angry, yes, but also tired. Doubting myself. Wondering if this was just how things worked now. If fighting it would only make me the neighborhood problem instead of him. There was a night I sat alone in the garage staring at the damage through the open door and honestly thought about giving up. Filling it in, letting it go, pretending it didn't matter. I even asked myself if I was overreacting, if Sarah would tell me to calm down, if I was becoming the cranky guy yelling about his lawn. But then I remembered her hands in the soil, her laugh when we planted those trees crooked, and I realized something important. If I let this go, I wasn't being peaceful. I was being erased. So I stopped reacting emotionally and started thinking clearly. I documented everything. Times, dates, depth of the ruts. Photos from every angle, house number in frame. Videos with his face visible behind the wheels, smirking like he knew he couldn't be touched. I wrote a formal letter and sent it certified. Calm, professional, direct. It was signed for. He kept doing it anyway. That's when I knew this wasn't about misunderstandings or kids being kids. This was a challenge. So I dug a trench. Not a booby trap. Not anything illegal. Just a shallow cut in my own property right where his tires always went. Nothing hidden. Nothing dangerous. Just the natural consequence of using someone else's lawn as a racetrack. The next morning I was waiting. Right on schedule, the Lamborghini came screaming down the street. It hit the lawn, hit the trench, and suddenly the roar turned into a sickening scrape as the front end slammed down. Metal met dirt. The car stopped dead. Breen jumped out furious, shouting like the world had betrayed him. And then the sirens arrived. I didn't rush. I didn't gloat. I showed the officers everything, the videos, the photos, the logs. One of them watched quietly, then looked at Breen and said, "This isn't an accident anymore." That's when Delphine came running out in her robe yelling about authority and HOA rules. The older officer cut her off mid-sentence. "Ma'am, this is private property. Your son's been trespassing." Her power evaporated right there in front of everyone. The tow truck arrived. The Lamborghini was hauled away. Neighbors watched in silence. Phones came out. And for the first time in weeks, I felt the weight lift off my chest. I didn't celebrate. I didn't say a word. I just stood there and watched the consequences finally catch up. By the end of the week, Delphine was voted out of the HOA. Breen stopped driving through the neighborhood altogether. And the mornings went quiet again. No engine, no damage. Just me, the porch, and the memory of a life worth defending. Power only works when people believe in it, and the moment you stop believing it, disappears.